Literature in Sanskrit begins with the spoken or sung literature of the Vedas from the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and continues with the oral tradition of the Sanskrit epics of Iron Age India. The golden age of classical Sanskrit literature dates to late antiquity. Indian literary production saw a late bloom in the 11th century before declining after 1100 CE, hastened by the Islamic conquest of India. Due to the destruction of ancient seats of learning such as the universities at Taxila and Nalanda, there are contemporary efforts towards revival, with events like the All-India Sanskrit Festival holding composition contests. Given its extensive use in religious literature, primarily in Hinduism, and the fact that most modern Indian languages have been directly derived from, strongly influenced by Sanskrit, the language and its literature is of great importance in Indian culture akin to that of Latin in European culture. Some Sanskrit literature such as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and the Upanishads were translated into Arabic and Persian, most significantly by the Emperor Akbar. The Panchatantra was also translated into Persian. The Vedas, composed between approximately 1500 BCE and 600 BCE in pre-classical Sanskrit, Vedic oral literature forms the basis for the further development of Hinduism. There are 4 Vedas: Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva, each with a main Samhita and a number of circumvedic genres, including Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Greya Sutras and Shruta Sutras. The main period of Vedic literary activity falls into California, the 9th to 7th centuries, when the various shakas compiled and memorized the respective corpora. The oldest surviving manuscript of a text composed in Sanskrit is the Devi Mahatmya on palm leaf, dating from the 11th century CE. The older Upanishads belong to the Vedic period, but the larger part of the Muktika canon is post-Vedic. The Aranyakas form part of both the Brahmana and Upanishad corpus. The epics, the period between approximately the 6th and 1st centuries BC, saw the composition and redaction of the 2 great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, with subsequent redaction progressing down to the 4th century CE. They are known as Itihasa, or history. The Ramayana, while not as long as the Mahabharata, the Ramayana is still twice as long as the Iliad and Odyssey put together. Traditionally, the authorship is attributed to the Hindu sage Valmiki, who is referred to as Adikavi, or first poet. In the Ramayana, the shloka meter was introduced for the first time. Like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana was also handed down orally and evolved through several centuries before being transferred into writing. It includes tales that form the basis for modern Hindu festivals and even contains a description of the same marriage practice still observed in contemporary times by people of Hindu persuasion. The story deals with Prince Rama, his exile and the abduction of his wife by the Rakshasa king Ravana, and the Lankan War. Similar to the Mahabharata, the Ramayana also has several full-fledged stories appearing as subplots. The Ramayana has also played a similar and equally important role in the development of Indian and Southeast Asian culture as the Mahabharata. The Ramayana is also extant in Southeast Asian versions. The Mahabharata is one of the longest poetic works in the world. While it is clearly a poetic epic, it contains large tracts of Hindu mythology, philosophy and religious tracts. Traditionally, authorship of the Mahabharata is attributed to the sage Vyasa. According to the Adi-Parva of the Mahabharata, the text was originally 8,800 verses when it was composed by Vyasa and was known as the Jaya, which later became 24,000 verses in the Bharata Samhita recited by Vaisampayana. The broad sweep of the story of the Mahabharata chronicles the story of the conflict between 2 families for control of Hastinapur, a city in ancient India. The impact of the Mahabharata on India and Hinduism cannot be stressed enough. Having been molded by Indian culture, it has in turn molded the development of Indian culture. Thousands of later writers would draw freely from the story and sub-stories of the Mahabharata. Buddhist and Jain works. Sanskrit also became a major language for Indian religions such as Buddhism and Jainism. Indian Buddhists began adopting Sanskrit during the rule of the Kushan Empire, at first in forms called Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit, which were influenced by the Prakrits. Asvathosa read the Buddhagita in classical Sanskrit, and later Buddhists also adopted pure Sanskrit. One of the earliest Sanskrit dramas that survives is also from Asvathosa, the Sariputra Prakarana. Most Mahayana Buddhist texts such as the Diamond Sutra were written in Sanskrit, as well as Tantric Buddhist texts. Sanskrit survives as a sacred language in the Neo Buddhism of Nepal. Jainism, though more varied in its use of local languages, also wrote many of its texts in Sanskrit.